14th, 2017, approximately 5:30 p.m. Mr. Burning, may we please have the roll call?
Yes, Ms. McFarland?
Present.
Mr. Honolo?
Present.
Mr. Burning?
Present.
All the trustees are present.
If we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on our agenda, I'd like to call to order the public hearing regarding the Township's Community Development Block Grant application process for fiscal year 2018, 19, and 2020. This is the second of two scheduled public hearings and is being conducted to gain input from the public and staff regarding possible project the Township could seek funding for through the CDBG program. Mr. Gilbert, would you please tell us about the grant application and recommended projects?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Burning. As indicated, this is the second hearing in regards to the CDBG process. Those two hearings are required. The first hearing is simply to allow for exploration of projects to apply for in the qualifying neighborhoods. The hearing this evening is to finalize those applications and then prioritize those projects in a manner in which allows staff to make application to Hamilton County Community Development. As the board is aware, the funding for the CDBG program is very limited in its geographic areas in which it can be utilized. There are 3, maybe 4 neighborhoods in Springfield Township that qualify due to the federal guidelines for funding, which is why the projects that are being proposed are limited to those neighborhoods. The first project and the first priority project that we would be seeking funding for or recommending funding for is a continuation of funding for the West College Hill Neighborhood Services Program. That would be in the amount of $68,000 per year for 3 years. That is a continuation of the same amount of funding that they have asked for in the last 2 grant cycles. The second project is Glencoe Street Resurfacing, which would be DeSoto Drive. That would be in the amount of $178,091. The third project would be the 7 Hill Street reconstruction of Roosevelt Avenue. That project would be $185,810. The fourth project would be the Lexington Heights Playground Equipment and Access Improvements for $60,000. The fifth project that we apply for would be the Proactive Code Enforcement Officer Program. That would be $20,000 per year for 3 years. And basically what that means is that we would have 1 part-time code enforcement officer that would spend approximately 20 hours per week doing proactive code enforcement in the qualifying neighborhoods for block grant funding. The last project that we'd be seeking funding for is the West College Hill Street extension of 5th Avenue. That project is estimated to be $225,000. The funding formula for these projects and the amount of money that the township gets, there is a methodology that the county uses directly from what HUD requires. The township on average gets around $400,000 to $500,000 for the grant cycle. That is a 3-year cycle. So this particular application process is for 18, 19, and 20. So we wouldn't apply again until the year 2020 for 21, 22, and 23, obviously. Whether or not the township will receive funding for all these projects, it would be highly unusual given the amount of funding we're asking for. However, they have had residual funds in the past that allow them direct money toward particular projects. So we think we have a good set of projects. The prioritization seems to be exactly what they look for in terms of projects to fund. Other than the code enforcement and in the West College Hill Neighborhood Services, they really look at non-programmatic opportunities to fund things such as road construction, playground improvements, things of that nature. They like the brick and mortar style improvements. So that would be the applications that the staff would look to seek funding for, and then unless there's any questions of the board or the public, we would entertain a motion from the board to set that prioritization and allow staff to make those applications.
Chris, what are the details on that West College Hill Street extension?
Basically, right now, there is a paper street in West College Hill that shows up as a basically dedicated but not accepted right-of-way. And
I know what you're talking
about. It also, there's something called Railroad Avenue, which bisects the 5th Avenue, and This particular project would allow for the extenuation, the extension of Fifth Avenue between, I think it's Mike Witherby and Betts, yeah. So that would basically open up an entire block for Habitat for Humanity to expand their building opportunities within West College Hill to continue to further attempt to revitalize that neighborhood. This project, we were actually asked to apply for it through our funding cycle by Hamilton County Community Development. They've assured me that if they do fund it, it will not take away from our typical allotment of funding that we get for our block grant application. So if it is funded, it's not going to be in place of something that we actually applied for. We're doing this at the request of the county so that they can find a means to fund it, because they are a close partner with Habitat for Humanity and is one of their high priorities to put money into the West College Hill neighborhood for revitalization.
Okay, very good. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. Does anyone in attendance have any questions or comments regarding the Community Development Block Grant application? Okay, if there's no comments regarding the application, I would entertain a motion to close the CDBG public hearing portion of our meeting. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's closed.
Moving on with the agenda, can we, excuse me. We have approval of the minutes of the regular meeting on October 10th, 2017, the regular work session on October 24th, 2017, and the special meeting bid opening on November 13th, 2017. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as written?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next on our agenda, Mr. Burning, do we have a fiscal report?
Yes, sir, we do. For the month ending October 31st, 2017, the township expenditures were $1,871,624.50, and the receipts were $1,563,293.45. The ending cash balance of $21,854,151.46 includes obligations for expenditures, payrolls, regular operating costs, ongoing capital projects, and investments. I do request a motion to approve the receipts, warrants, payroll, expenditures, update and current revenue and reports for the period ending 10/31/2017. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And I want to let everyone know that financial reports are available for viewing at the administration offices during regular business hours or on our website at any time. That's all I have, Mr. Burning.
Thank you, Mr. Burning. Next, we move to the department action and discussion items. Mr. Hinnekamp, do you have a report for us?
I do, Mr. Burning. A number of action items. Start off with a liquor permit hearing request, and that is for Los Polos Hermanos, doing business as Wingstop at 881 West Galbraith. This is a new establishment. Chief, I don't believe we have any objection to this.
There's no objection, no.
So I would, at that point, recommend that we send a customary letter stating that the board does not request a hearing.
I'll make a motion approving that.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Second item I have is good news. We had the bid opening for the long-awaited Ranch Hill Estates project that took place yesterday. Received a total of 5 bids, which was good, and all of the bids, in fact, all of the bids came in below the engineer's estimate, but the low bidder at this point is R.A. Miller. The estimate was $1,056,000 and $56,015, and the low bidder is at $937,506 at this point. So with that in mind, I would recommend to the board that they authorize me to move forward with that bid contingent on final review of the bid packet by our Public Works Director, Mike Gould, and also our Law Director, Laura Abrams.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I have a question. Does that
Yes.
mean then for 2019, the project will start?
Yeah, I think that's, well, yeah, that, the monies won't become available until the end of July of 18.
Okay,
And given the size of that project, it's not likely that we would, or no, wait a minute, we did, I'm sorry, I'm confused. I'm thinking of the SKIP project, right. This was approved last year, so we had the
Right.
money. This is a construction for March,
so it will be March of
probably
2018?
March of
Towards
this
the end of
spring.
March- Towards the end of March
Oh.
of 18 is when it'll start.
Wonderful.
I'm getting ahead of myself with the other good news that's coming up. Save that for a little bit, yep. This project will be
I know
this,
the residents are excited. They will be.
For sure.
okay. I don't know, did we pass that motion or not?
Yes, it was
Yes.
passed.
All right, next item I've got is a request to set the senior center holiday schedule for this year, that Thanksgiving week, Monday the 20th through Friday the 24th, that the senior center be closed, and that it also be closed basically Christmas through New Year's, the 25th through January the 1st. It's pretty customary to what we've done in previous years.
So moved.
Second it?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I have two sidebar agreements. They are essentially identical. The sidebar agreements, one is with the Fraternal Order of Police for our gold unit, which is the sergeants and lieutenants in the police department. And then the second is the identical basic language for the blue unit, which is our patrol and detective bargaining unit. This particular issue is coming before you is we do anticipate the possibility of going to a different schedule this year. And the current language that is in the collective bargaining agreement really doesn't talk about, basically what it does is it talks about that they earn holiday pay, 11 holiday pays, and then traditionally that holiday time has been associated with whatever amount of time they're working on a shift. So in other words, currently they're working 8.5-hour shifts, they get 11 holidays, and so that establishes a bank of 93.5 hours available. In anticipation that we may move to a 12-hour schedule, what we wanted to make clear here, if we do go to that schedule, since scheduling is a management right, that isn't automatically going to mean that they're going to get 11 days at 12 hours, which would be, I think, 132 total hours. So what we're doing is in this language, we're making it very clear that the holiday hours are at 93.5 hours. And that's what, regardless of what the schedule, what shift they're actually working, that's what they'll earn as far as holiday pay. So obviously the union is supportive of that. They have already had their vote and have signed the agreement. So the last thing for that to happen would be for the board to approve it.
Based on that, make a motion to approve both agreements.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Our officers should be very happy and are happy about that, I assume.
Yes, they are.
I know they mentioned it a couple of times that they wanted something like that, and
And not only that, it gives us the opportunity to do other things that's going to provide better service to the township in general. So it's an exciting time to do that.
great.
Okay, next action item that I have, this is something, gosh, I don't even want to say how long we've been working on this thing. The Beech Grove Cemetery has been a challenge to say the least, and Chris and Joe and Gwen, I know you've worked very, very hard on this, and all the work that Laura's done over the years, together with the Port Authority to finally get this thing across the goal line, and at long last, it looks like very soon we're going to be the owner of a cemetery and allow us to take even greater steps than we've taken so far to remediate the issues that have been going on there. But we finally do have the closing documents, the closing agreement documents, and also the, the sale and purchase agreement for this property. And I know the board's had an opportunity to review that. And so seeking authorization from the board to allow me to execute those documents. Again, Laura, I don't know if you've completed your review or not.
I have, we checked just on the lien status yesterday, and the lien's been removed, so it's ready for closing at this point.
And all of the partials are included in there, because that was always a challenge,
Yeah.
it appeared, to make sure we,
There was
Not
nothing
all the
easy
parcels.
about this
no,
cemetery.
there wasn't.
It wasn't one parcel, it was multiple parcels, it was, yes,
Absolutely.
very difficult.
In fact, we even had to go to the state and get some state legislation put in place so that we could proceed on.
This really required a little bit of everything.
Yes, it did.
For what amounts to a fairly simple thing that we're trying to solve. It was quite the ordeal. I don't know how many years?
Oh, my goodness.
Oh,
I looked back on some
Back
notes.
6, 7?
Since 11.
Since,
I'd say it's
Started before I got here.
yeah.
Yeah, 10. But I want to reiterate, we got this without spending, what was the tax, it was
Yeah, there were about
$270,000 that we would have had as our debt,
And then
had we just
liens.
accepted it.
And then liens on the equipment.
Yeah, there were liens on equipments and tractors, and it was incredibly a mess. But had we just taken it when we could have taken it, we would have had almost $300,000 in debt that the taxpayers would have paid.
And I have to, thank Bill Seitz and Eric Kearney for taking that bull by the horn and taking it all the way to the state level so that we could get that lien, excused. That was the only way we were able to get it done.
Well, and the treasurer's office helped, and it was unbelievable collaborative. Yes, because everybody agreed that it was ridiculous that we would have to assume maintenance of a cemetery and take that debt on at the same time, when the debt should not have existed in
The
the
debt was obviously never going to be paid, so.
It was never going to be paid.
Right. And this was a property that, it basically was in private hands and had fallen into total disrepair. And so we've been able to go in with the understanding that we're going to get it and take steps to really clean it up, make it look, decent for the families that have, relatives buried there. And it's we got to commend the service department and everything they've done, because it's an added level of service and work that the men have taken on, but it's all for the best. And the place looks so much better
It
now
does.
with the fence gone, and we got rid of the house, and it was completely falling apart, and some of the other buildings, and it's a big improvement.
And there's still work to be done. We have individuals waiting for us to get these documents completed.
There was
And then
only
they're
so
gonna-
much we could do, and
I know, and they're ready to
we were right on
step
the
in.
line of what we could do before we owned it. And this
Absolutely.
will be our final.
So we supposedly have volunteers that's going to help with get money, and also, it's also really, I'm so happy for the families, because the cemetery is a historical cemetery in our township. And it's something that, we have a lot of historic, really, memorials here in the township. We have a lot of people who've done great things, and we have all types of people who, from a history perspective, makes this township a great place. And that historical cemetery is one, and it has a lot of veterans there as well. And so we're just excited that we're finally taking this next step moving forward to get that taken care of.
And they're still burying people.
And they're still burying, yes.
Maybe
They were.
Yeah.
So do we,
talk about that.
do
Yeah.
we need to,
Need a motion authorizing me to sign the appropriate agreements.
so move?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
One action item that is not on the agenda, but based on our public hearing earlier today, I would recommend that the board pass a motion establishing the priorities that we discussed during the public hearing earlier in the meeting regarding community development block grants. With the projects as mentioned, I can reiterate those if you'd like.
That's
No,
okay.
we got it.
Do we have
So
a
moved.
motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, just as far as some updates and information discussion, good news, we talked about that. Mike Gould did forward some information to me regarding our current SCIP project applications. We submitted a total of 5 applications. Is that correct, Mike? And I think Skip, at least as far as far back as I can remember, this is the smallest of allotment of money available for Skip than I think in any of the rounds that I can remember previous. We submitted 5 projects. As it stands right now, and this is going to be finalized, I think, on Friday, we are in really, really good shape to have 2 projects funded for sure. Number 1 project was Brentwood Village, and this would be Cavalier Drive from Renard to the north cul-de-sac, and Christopole Drive from Cavalier to Woodview. This grant would be in the amount of $322,912, and then the township would be responsible for the remaining 50%. Our number 2 project was Glen Forest project, which includes all of Lux Avenue and all of Beach Ridge Drive. This would be a $320,000, $982 amount in grant funding. And again, township would then use township funds for the remaining 50%. And right now, our number 3 project, which is in Brentwood Heights, which is Pine Hollow Drive, all of Pine Hollow, all of Fernwell, and all of Foxcroft, is currently the number 2 contingency project to be funded. So, you know, in years, there are residual funds that come through from previous years, and this one stands in line number 2. So if, you know, right now it stands, it looks pretty certain that we're going to receive $643,000 in funding, and the possibility that's slightly over $1 million. So
What was the amount this time, that we had to divide?
3.5 million.
3.5 million is
And
Countywide,
historically,
so we could be looking at almost, you know, if this goes, getting almost 1/3 of the money available countywide. And I
Wow.
think that's really a credit to the job that Mike's done. Quite frankly, there definitely is an art to this. This is not as easy as it seems. You know, it's selecting the right projects, number 1, especially when you only have $3.5 million. You're looking at trying to slot projects that have a very good chance of getting funded. I mean, if we had a project that was $2 million to do, I mean, you're not going to have the same opportunity that you would. So that is number 1. Of course, putting together the applications and making the case for the grant is another part of it, and then staying on the process. Because if you've ever been involved, and Joe, I know you have, that skip process, you can
it's
pull your hair out, as it seems like every year it's a different wrinkle that's trying to be added, and it's complicated. I'm not, condemning anybody for that. County does the best that they can. It's complicated. You've got a lot of different entities, but Mike has stayed on top of that. It's been very, very diligent, and I don't think we'd be in this position if he hadn't done what he did in this process.
it is so competitive. It is just so competitive.
Especially when they have like less than 1/3 of the
Absolutely.
money they normally have.
And Mike, you just was right there all the time. You didn't blink an eye. You just kept critically thinking about how you're going to make this project work, or how you're going to be able to tweak this and tweak that. You just are to be commended.
I appreciate that. And, we are competing, to your point, Mr. Burning. We are competing with the city and the county. And we're all in this together when it comes to our infrastructure that needs improvements. So, you have to be as creative and innovative as you possibly can. So I appreciate your comments.
We're fortunate. Thank you.
So keep our fingers crossed and hope
Yes.
that stays the way it is, and if some contingency funds come in, we can continue with another record year in capital improvements. Just by way of, we have been talking about the possibility of adopting some restrictions regarding dog tethering. I know Laura has been evaluating this for several months. The state is currently, I believe there's some pending legislation that isn't directly related to this, but certainly could impact it one way or another. And so we're not intentionally delaying this, or we are intentionally delaying this until the state does whatever they're going to do. Because the last thing I think we want to do is craft some restrictions and then have the state adopt legislation that would, maybe undo what we've just done. So haven't forgotten about it. We'll bring it back at the appropriate time and have the board look at it once the state has cleaned up what they're doing. Anything else you want to add to
That
that?
sounds like a plan.
Yeah, I think the House bill will resolve, I think we'll know next month whether they are going to pursue it. Actually, I'm very pleased that they're taking it on because that whole section dealing with dogs is it's poorly contrived because it was piecemeal. So that somebody's finally looking at it as a whole. I'm hoping that once they look at it next month, that we'll know whether it's going to go forward, and then we'll know where we can go.
Sounds good.
Okay, also under discussion, just wanted to remind everybody that we will have a open house format meeting on November the 20th. That's this coming Monday, between 4:30 and 6:30, and that will be to discuss the Center Point Preserve Conceptual Master Plan, be an opportunity for residents to come in. We'll have certain stations set up that display the proposed plan. As you're aware, the board is required to take some action on that by the end of the month. And so we wanted to have the open house, allow the board to gain that feedback, and then take action at your work session later in the month, according to the schedule that we've set. Also wanted to mention that, and I don't know, the board may have received this as well, but I've received letters both from Jonathan Deaver, state rep from the 28th district, and then also Cecil Thomas, who's our state senator in the 9th district, just basically making us aware that the state is currently accepting requests for their capital budget for fiscal years 2019 and 2020. And if we have a project that we believe would qualify or something we'd like to submit, they will make us, we can do that. So, been talking to Chris about it. Typically, we don't really find something that we would qualify, but, we'll put our heads together, and if we believe that there's something that the board should submit on behalf of the township, we'll let you know. The deadline is for submitting is in early January. So, if you know of anything, let us know, and we'll talk about it. It has fairly tight
I was going to
restrictions.
say, what are some of the requirements? Or
It's
That's-
pages of stuff that I'm not going to go
Really?
into, but we're not going to fix roads with it. It's typically something that we would typically do, wouldn't qualify.
Okay,
But I'll make sure that you have copies of these letters,
Okay.
and then you can evaluate the application process and what the requirements are.
okay.
In the case of Deaver's letters, what they're really saying is they like to do it as a group, sort of the region go forward. So that
Okay.
you're generally not talking about individual community projects, you're talking
From a regional
more
perspective.
regional basis. It's not that individual projects don't technically qualify, but they're not going to get funded. It'd be very difficult for a pet project to get funded. So you're looking at very large, and that's why they do it in
Regional.
yeah, they do it in conjunction with the chamber or with the business community to try to put forth the best application, because you're competing with all of the other regions,
Right.
obviously in the state, for those monies. Also, just wanted to announce that the Hamilton County Commissioners have set a public hearing. They've already conducted one, I believe, which was back in November,
8th.
earlier in November. Their second one is coming up on the 8th. That is Wednesday, November the 8th, and that is 11:30 a.m.
I think it's the 15th. November the 8th was last week.
Oh, yeah, my bad.
I think it's the 15th. I think it's this week, so I think it's the
Is it
15th.
this week?
Pretty sure it's tomorrow.
Where's it being held at? Is it here?
Administration
Oh,
building.
down.
And that is to discuss the adoption of the $5 additional motor vehicle annual license tax is what they are considering. And wanted to make the board aware that the annual meeting is required by Ohio Revised Code Section 14602 for our Ohio Volunteer Firefighter Dependents Fund Board. Will take place on December the 12th, 2017 at 5 p.m. Rob, remind me, that is Gwen and Mark are the two trustee members that are on there, and then there are yourself and two other
We have
members?
our members that are Tom Sarvis and currently Mark Gilman.
Gotcha. And then, personnel update. I did accept the resignation of Michael Swafford. He's a part-time EMT firefighter. His resignation date was September 29th. And obviously, we had the unfortunate situation with Lieutenant Jeff Leininger, who passed away on October the 13th of 2017. In our Public Works Department, I did accept the resignation of John Gelhausen as our road supervisor. John's effective date for his resignation was November the 3rd, 2017. And the last thing that I have is just to make the board aware, and I believe you all received it. I did receive a letter from Captain Thomas Butler. He is a captain at the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office. And Captain Butler was commending the work done by our police department. His son, Alex, was involved in the incident that occurred on November the 5th, where we had an individual that he had pulled over for a traffic stop, actually exit his car and fire a round at Officer Butler. Very fortunately, that round did not strike him, and that resulted in a pretty intensive manhunt for that individual over, I guess, the next
4 days,
3 or 4 days.
straight 4 days.
And anyway, just as you know, Captain Butler commending the work that the police department did, not only in the investigation itself, but just in the way they handled it with his son under very difficult circumstances. And Chief, certainly congratulations to the work that we all did. It ended in a way where this individual is never going to pose a threat to the public again, nor to any other police officers.
Will
So,
not.
fantastic job.
Thank you.
You know, one thing, and I did, Chief, speak to you briefly about this, I think it might be worth just, stating to the public some of the things that your department did to track down the suspect and get the resolution that we did.
Well, we did have help from some of our local partners in law enforcement. In my 30 years of law enforcement, I have never seen more comprehensive, extensive, and passionate investigation in my entire life, not just with our department, but any department. We had officers that we had to tell them to go home and rest so that they could come back and continue. But this literally went on for 4 straight days. And, it had a tragic ending in the end, which the suspect chose himself. But like Mr. Hennekamp said, he no longer poses a threat to the public or any other law enforcement. Just a senseless act. Just absolutely can't explain why that something like this would happen, but it does. Not just here, but across the country every day. And, I commend our officers for their bravery in bringing this to a conclusion.
Another thing, I thought you just did a great job in our officers as well, but also just the thought that there was an impression that he might want the officers to take him out rather than he take himself out. And that would not have been a nice thing either, a pretty thing either. And I just think, just looking at how, when a person's thinking like that, they usually don't think about the outcomes like that. They just want an officer to take them out. And I just commend our officers for the professionalism that they've demonstrated throughout this whole process, even with all the media coverage. We just stood out, as always, as a very professional organization.
We did, and I just have to say also that, the officer involved in this is a newer officer. He's been with us less than a year. A young officer, and the way that he reacted to the situation. You're a crowded Kroger parking lot down on Vine Street in Hartwell on Sunday afternoon. That could have been terribly more tragic than it was. There was no loss of life at that scene. I can't explain that other than it speaks volumes to the training of how we're training our officers, because he reacted precisely as we have been training them. So it's.
Well, Chief, and the other thing that impresses me, and this is something I know you've been emphasizing, it's the restraint that officers have shown in certain situations where your instincts will want you to do, when somebody shoots at you, you're going to want to go to a whole different level. But Certain things weren't done because, like you said, the circumstances of innocent people were around there, and, he didn't foolishly pursue in a way that would have put himself or others in danger, and we eventually, the situation was resolved. So, great job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
All right, I think that is all I have. Kim, I would turn things over to you quickly and to bring us up to date with what's going on with arts enrichment and township events and programs.
Arts Connect will end the year with Winterfest, and that event is on December the 2nd. It's our largest event that we've ever hosted before, and the largest collaborative event that we've ever hosted. Our goal is to have all of the schools involved in this event, and we are starting off with the parade at noon. We're going to travel down Winton Road from the old Kroger location to the fire station. And then it will end behind our building, where we're going to have an entire winter village. We'll have 7 cottages that are set up. Each one has different activities for families to participate in. We'll also have ice sculpture demonstrations, a petting zoo, free hay rides. We'll have school performances on the stages, and all of that is outside. Ice sculpture demonstrations. The Cincinnati Opera is bringing their mobile unit out, so families can enjoy a little taste of the opera with 15-minute shows. Inside the Grove Banquet Hall, we're going to have Madcap Puppets. Later, we'll have a Cincinnati Civic Orchestra concert, and then we'll also have a student art show going on in there at the same time. So it'll be a long, fun-filled day. Everything is free. We're collecting donations that will benefit the community. We're collecting canned goods, new and used coats, and unwrapped toys. And again, all of that comes right back to the community. We have a lot of sponsors that have made this event possible, so a lot of work involved. This was all ideas of residents. We had a resident committee come up with a lot of these ideas, and December 2nd from noon, it'll start at noon, and we'll end at 7 o'clock p.m.
It's going to be a fun-filled day. Absolutely.
Thanks, Kim.
Mr. Burning, I know you have, and the other board members have copies of the departmental activity reports, so unless there's any questions, that's all I have, other than at the end of our meeting, I would request that the board go into executive session to consider employment of a public employee.
Thank you, Mr. Hinnenkamp. Does anybody have any questions?
I just have to add one thing. We had the Arts Connect art and show and program at the Centennial Barn this past Friday and Saturday. Fantastic job. There were so many folks there, and everyone was just, I'm amazed at how many artists we have in this area, not only in Springfield Township, but in the surrounding area, who participated in that event. And I'm trying to think, I think the gentleman that, Millennium Robot, I mean, he just took the stage, but the artists were just phenomenal with everything. You did a great job pulling that together.
Thanks, Gwen. We do have some resolutions before the board this evening. The first resolution is resolution number 96-2017, establishing assessment for abatement of nuisance and certifying same to the Hamilton County Auditor. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Ms. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Honolaw.
Aye.
Mr. Burning.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
The next one is resolution number 97-2017, establishing assessment for removal of junk motor vehicles pursuant to revised code 505.871 and resolution number 80-2012, and certifying same to the Hamilton County Auditor. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Ms. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Honolaw.
Aye.
Mr. Burning.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next is resolution number 98-2017, authorizing the private sale of junk motor vehicles which were titled to the township pursuant to revised code 4513.61 and revised code 4513.62, and which are not needed or unfit for use in any township department. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Ms. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Honolaw.
Aye.
Mr. Burning.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next is resolution number 99-2017, supplemental appropriations within the general fund, police district fund, fire district fund, lighting district fund, residential recycling incentive program fund, state law enforcement forfeitures fund, state law enforcement fines fund, and the federal law enforcement forfeitures fund. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Harnwell?
Aye.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next is resolution number 100-2017, resolution to amend resolution number 84-2017, declaring a dangerous property condition at 2044 North Bend Road. Do we have a motion?
Before we
Then isn't this ours?
go on this, what is
Yeah.
the amendment here? I was reading the thing, trying to...
You're basically amending it because we know the contractor.
You're specifying who's going to perform the demolition work.
Okay,
Oh,
very good,
okay.
very good. So moved.
Second it? I was doing the same thing, Bill.
Yeah, I see it.
I was wondering
I
that
see
too.
it here, yeah.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Harnwell?
Aye.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next is resolution number 101-2017, determining necessity for road improvements pursuant to revised code 5573.01 on Ranch Hill Drive, Montoro Drive, and Pecora Drive, and authorizing statutory actions required for such improvements. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second it?
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Harnwell?
Aye.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Moving on to old business. Do we have any old business before the board?
I have none.
You know, no, nothing under old
Well, I
business.
guess it could be old.
Well,
I just want to thank all of the residents for going to the polls and supporting our fire department and fire department levy. It was just phenomenal, and I just want to thank everyone that continues to support our fire department for the great job that they're doing, and the way they're also moving to the future to look at future challenges for the township. And really, I'm thinking about the paramedicine. That's yet to continue to evolve. So I just want to thank all of our residents who supported the fire department this past week.
Chief, your approval numbers were pretty outstanding. I think it's a sign you're doing the right thing.
We consider it a vote of confidence, yes.
Yes.
The other thing I would say is I would like to thank the residents and the voters for this past election. Mark Burning and I were reelected as trustees, and it's not so much that it was the two of us as persons that were reelected, but I think it was a vote of confidence by the voters of Springfield Township that they think we're on the right course, that the efforts of all the people here in this room that are, the ones that are really running all the day-to-day operations, making the township a success, it's really a vote of confidence in all of you, and we certainly appreciate that. And, with the results, we're going to be able to continue with the accomplishments and successes that we've had for the township, and we're going to keep trying to improve every neighborhood and improve, the quality of life for everybody here. So we just want to say thank you.
Any new business?
I have none.
Okay, moving on to citizens' participation. If there's anyone here this evening that would like to address the board, we'd ask you to come up to the podium and please state your name and address for the record. Good evening, Mr. Rivers.
First, I'd like to congratulate Joe and Mark for getting reelected.
Thank you.
Don't have much today. I'm just going to let you guys know where we're at in Seven Hills. First of all, I just want to talk about we get in touch with a lot of the property owners to try to hold them responsible and tell them what we expect out of them in our neighborhood and what we expect for them to do, because it's not the renters that's destroying the property and none. It's, it's the renters that destroying the properties, but it's not theirs. They act like they're not responsible. So we're going to try to get a hold of the property owners and talk with them on the same page and try to get them to come aboard and see. I've talked to a few of them already. We also talked to some of the merchants about, keeping their place up, keeping it clean, keeping the trash. I did have some pictures I kind of want you to look at. Well, you can have them or throw them away when you get done. These are the merchants right here. This is the residents. That's some of the trash that we know we still got a big trash problem. So that's probably why we're trying to get a hold of the property owners to deal with the trash problem out there. 'Cause we really got a bad trash problem. Just phenomenal with the trash. Chief, Rob, doing pretty good on the loitering and the stuff in there. I think we finally got that solved. So it's looking good over there on Birch Ridge. Matter of fact, one of the persons that was probably causing a lot of that has moved. So that probably was a plus. I don't see too much of them hanging around the Sunoco anymore. The speeding, like it's kind of getting under control. So I don't see too much of that anymore. We talked to the people, CHMA, on the Roosevelt House, and they're working with us too. She said she won't be able to make our meeting Thursday, but we've been corresponding back and forth with the email, so she's going to try to do what she can do, as far as the Section 8 people that's in the Roosevelt House, try to come together on what we can do and what we expect out of the new tenants. And what else? I think that's about it. Just try to get everything looking good, though. We're coming on board with a lot of stuff. I'm going to sit over in Colerain Township meeting, their civic meeting, because I was talking to one of the residents over there, and they have really revitalized their neighborhood, and so they invited me to come sit and see what they're doing and how they're getting their neighborhood together. And I said, fine, I'll sit over there and maybe I can bring some information back to Seven Hills and try to get it, on board with everything. Okay, and that's probably all I have. Everything's looking pretty good. I don't know if it's cold or the weather's got something to do with it or what, but it's looking pretty good. But I do have a rumor that's been going around, and maybe you guys can answer it for me. The rumor is that Seven Hills is not going to be around in about 2 or 3 more years.
Where is it going?
Where's it going to go?
Yeah.
I mean, is it going to be tore down?
No,
That's a
that
wild
is
rumor.
not true.
No, there's no basis in that at all.
It's never even been discussed to do that since I've been on the board for almost 4 years.
And I'm-
Been here since
We don't have
it's
the-
never been discussed.
We don't have the authority.
See, I thought
you know,
what I've heard was that all the building down there by Hillman they're coming on up with industrial park, and they need to buy some property and need to move the land on up. They're coming on up and going to take half of Seven Hills with them, so that's not true. Okay, then that's all I need.
Not that I'm aware of.
I just thought, and I always say this, I'm so glad, when you hear rumors,
Well,
you tell on the rumors.
yeah, I think maybe where some of the confusion comes in is in the neighborhood master plan, the long-term master plan
I think that's where it's
does
coming from.
call for a lot of that residential property to be future light industrial. Now, when you have a land use plan, Joe, that doesn't mean anything's going to happen. It's all privately owned, so the residents control that. And given that you have that many properties back there, I mean, if it was 2 or 3 parcels, that makes that a little bit more feasible. But when we went through that master plan, as we looked to the vision, long-term, the residents at Seven Hills at the time that participated thought that a transition away from a residential neighborhood into a more commercial neighborhood made sense. I can tell you flat out, there's not, at current time, there's really not a market for light industrial uses. The park that you're referring to where Hillman Fastener they did buy some land to expand their parking lot, but there's been vacant industrial land available since I've been here, so that's the last 20 years that's still available in that park. So there really isn't a demand for it. So when we're thinking long-term, this is just down the road if that ever was a possibility, but ultimately it's the property owners that would make that decision, not the township. The township can't take your property, we're not gonna, facilitate it. You would be the one that would sell it, and then this would just show that future land use, we would be supportive of that if enough of those parcels were consolidated.
Right, well, that's-
The practicality of that is very remote.
Yeah, our
That's
future,
good to
And
hear.
that's not the only place in the township where there's a master plan that says somewhere down the road, something's going to happen, but we have not discussed it in the 4 years I've been on the board to do anything like that.
yeah, the planning efforts that Mike and Mr. Bernie are referring to, we went through that neighborhood master plan. We had residents of Seven Hills sitting at the table developing that future land use plan for that particular neighborhood. And really all that does, very simply, is say, if in the future it isn't going to be residential, what could we see it being other than residential? And that's where that came from. So it's purely a what-if scenario in the future. If it is not residential, what could it be? That's what they came up with.
Well, I explained that to them at the meeting first. I got about 3 or 4 inquiries. But anyway, those pictures, one picture is, where you see all that garbage, that's right next to Janie and Don. The people live right next to them. And that's what they're dealing with every day. That it's ridiculous. It's rodents galore in there. That's just raw garbage all around the house. And those other one is Little Caesars. I was picking up trash yesterday, and I got up there by Little Caesars, and I just happened to see one of the guys come out the back door. So I said, hey, so you guys need to put that in your dumpster. I said, it's grease, boxes and grease. And he said, well, I don't know nothing about it. You can talk to my manager. So the manager came out and actually, about cleaning it up. And she said she ain't got nothing to do with it. She said, I don't have no help to do it. So that's when I took pictures and said, this is ridiculous. This is a business, and this is how you treat your garbage, and this is how you treat your neighborhood.
That's the ones here by the dumpster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's Little Caesars trash. Seems like the other merchants there. I seen one out today over by the fish and chicken place, that little strip mall in there. They actually had a couple guys out picking up trash.
And see, I don't understand, because quite frankly, most businesses, if you see a business, that it's not unusual to see one of their employees outside with the broom and sweeping and cleaning up, so it's a shame that Little Caesars.
Well, it got cleaned up because I cleaned it up.
Yeah, but you shouldn't have had.
But sadly, it's behind Little Caesars,
Did you-
so I guess the manager doesn't care.
Did you report those to the township prior to tonight?
I reported that trash on that 10928 Birch Ridge. I reported that to David.
Okay, great. I mean, I just don't want you to wait until these meetings to
Right.
report that to us.
Right. No, I reported. I just
Okay.
wanted to show you guys what we're up against.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Right.
It'll probably eventually get done, but if I was living next door like Don and Janie is, I would be furious to look over there and see all that garbage, and you got rodents picking in the bags, and I wouldn't want rats to come into my house. It's
I agree.
pictures. Really, if you see it, it's worse than the pictures.
Yeah,
Well,
I would hope you don't wait until it gets so bad to
No.
call us, so.
And the only reason I took the ones at the dumpster because I really tried to. I was picking up trash, and I thought when I told them they sent somebody out to clean it up, but they just kind of shrugged it off like so. So I just took some pictures.
It's important that you reported it before you came tonight, because some of that we can, if it appears to be something that's a health issue, then the health department, the Hamilton County Health Department, can be made aware of that as well.
And something else I want to ask you right quick too, like garbage day, do we have a certain time to put our cans on the street, and do we have a certain time to take them in? Now, some communities do. Because like at Seven Hills, you can see garbage cans still sitting on the street 2 and 3 days after the rumpy guy
It's a lot to do
left.
with the in most neighborhoods, tonight I put mine out, okay? And then, whenever I get home the next day, I bring them back in.
Right.
you know,
That's how we do. I know people work and they probably get them when they get home, but some of these people leave their cans out 2 and 3 days. Seriously, you can go there.
I believe you, because on my street, sometimes they're out there for, 2 or 3 days later, I'm driving by thinking about, was today garbage day? No, it's not. Why are their cans out?
So that's something that we don't have no control over, I guess.
At this time, we do not.
All right, that's all I
But
have.
Mr. Rivers, I would like to thank you for what you and your group, I know you and your wife have spent a lot of time and effort on this, and we'd really like to thank you for what you're doing in your community, which is also obviously part of our community. And your efforts are obviously helping. Maybe they're not where you want them to be, but it sounds like we're at least taking baby steps in the right direction.
Yeah, it's getting there. It didn't get that way overnight. They're gonna take more than overnight to correct it, so, you know,
And
maybe.
there's this famous comment, it may not be where I want it to be, but thank God it ain't like it used to be.
There you go. All right, thanks.
Joe, I would say one thing to you. When we were at your meeting, we had a discussion about, abandoned homes. There's
Right, right.
one that's like been abandoned for 20 years, and so the Hamilton County Land Bank is just now there's a new expedited process to allow the county, the land bank, to take title to abandoned tax delinquent properties through the board of revision process. And we're going to see if we can't get, I know there was, I don't remember the address off the top of my head, but I think there was that one, and we talked about identifying any others in your community with the idea of getting control of them, demolishing the properties, turning it back to grass,
Right.
and then dividing the property up in kind of a lot-to-yard program with adjoining neighbors.
Yeah, we saw one down there on Maple Hill like that. It was
Yeah.
sitting between two houses, a lot, and I showed that to Don today.
And so if you identify others like that, get us if there's any up there you think are candidates for that,
Okay.
get us the addresses and we'll research it and see if they're something that we can take through the land bank
Okay, I
and
sure.
help clean up the neighborhood. It's not going to solve everything, but
Right, right.
it's one more thing to help make the place better.
All right,
We
then.
got abandoned properties that are just sitting there. We need to get, if they're not able to be rehabbed, they need to be gotten rid of. Yeah.
In some of our neighborhoods, not just Seven Hills, you'll have properties like that, but what you normally discover is that the individuals are in a nursing home or they're significant or dead, and it's pending.
Right, right.
So it's not just Seven Hills that you see this,
Right,
you see it throughout the township. And normally, what we found when we explore that, it's one of those. Either the person is in a nursing home, or they've passed away and it's hanging up in court somewhere.
Okay. Did I hear you right, saying that you're trying to get money to do Roosevelt, or it's in the works?
Oh, you're talking about the
block
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 grant.
grant element, we've
Yeah.
applied for it.
We applied for
Oh, you
money to
applied, okay.
redo it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I thought I heard. Okay, thank you for the time.
Thank
I
you.
saw your ears perk up when you saw that. I knew you was going to say something.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Hi, thank you for this opportunity. Dave Hughes, 853 Denier Place. Congratulations, Mr. Bernie and Mr. Honorlaw.
Thank you.
Mike, you mentioned something about a decision that was going to be made regarding Center Point soon. Would you care to elaborate on that?
Well, the master plan process that we've been talking about is the developer has to complete a master plan.
When you say developer, are you talking about Nair St. Francis or somebody else?
Correct. Yeah, their agreement requires them to have an approved master plan by the end of November,
Okay,
this month.
so it's kind of
Remember,
a
you and I have talked about that for years.
formality kind of thing? Yeah, okay.
Well, not a formality, I mean,
Well-
so we're gonna have, the open house is
Right.
for the community to review it, for the board to get input on that master plan, and then the board would have to take action, and likely would do that at their work session
Okay,
after that input, so.
There's nothing
Thank you.
nefarious, Dave.
I'm not suggesting that. Let's take a walk. Gwen, find those sneakers. Let's get down. Let's take a walk through.
I have never lost my sneakers, and I have walked through there. Maybe not with you, but I've
Not
walked
together,
through there.
but I think what we need to do, and Mr. Honorlaw and I had a chance to kind of discuss this on Election Day, we need to find common ground and how we can work together. I've had the opportunity to contact hundreds of residents in the area lately in anticipation of the open house, because I want everybody to be aware and have their input and ask their questions. I think it's high time we could start with the greenhouses that supply 50,000 plants a year to the city of Cincinnati, including Crone Conservatory and Fountain Square and so on. We start there, we take a tour, and maybe we take a walk down to the ponds, and maybe together we can get a better perspective of just what really best serves the investment of 1.3 mil and the community. Maybe that's a better starting point. We can talk about it. We'll probably set up a meeting, and Chris, perhaps you or Mike, I'll try to see what, we don't all have to meet at the same time. We can have several meetings or several walks, and we'll figure out. It's kind of getting kind of cold right now, but let's do that. Is anybody?
I've walked there 3 times.
Well, let's make it 4.
Oh, Dave, I don't. With my gym shoes.
I think, Dave, and you and I have talked about this on the phone, I think it's worth repeating. The board is contractually obligated to move forward with the plan that Meyer is putting forward. So unless he doesn't move forward, the board is contractually obligated to that. We have an agreement that has certain milestones that must be met, but that agreement does, if the board wanted to say, we don't want to develop it anymore, unless they don't approve some step of his agreement, as long as he meets his obligations, the ship has kind of sailed to a degree as far as what the board be able to sit there and say.
The developer.
The developer.
St.
We have
Francis.
we have a contract with St.
Right,
Francis.
of course.
The board has an agreement with them, and
Right.
as long as he's performing at his level, this process is going to move forward.
But this is the 4th proposal. I guess what I'm trying to say is that what is going to be developed is highly flexible, as far as I understand.
It'll be a little less flexible with the adoption of this master plan. Each step will begin to really narrow down, exactly what gets authorized in the process. You started, the rezoning of the property, which you saw a very conceptual master plan.
Mm-hmm.
This next phase, you're going to see more building footprint, the alignment of the streets, a lot more development of the park, the piece that the township will retain. So you're going to see it. It's still not an exact, you're going to see renderings of potential architecture, things of that nature. You won't know uses yet because he hasn't gone out and really marketed the plan, and he can't do that until he has the plan approved. And that is really the next step in this process. Once that occurs, which will occur in all likelihood by the end of the month, unless the board were to reject the plan outright or suggest some modification to the plan, but it still is going to be consistent with, the plan that's being submitted is wholly consistent with the master plan as part of the zoning.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I guess what I'm seeing is that this is very much in flux.
In a sense, some of it is in flux, correct. But some of it is, obviously, you got to start with a concept before you can, and we started with a concept. Now we're getting down to a little bit more specific, but it's clearly not specific, as Mike said. We have, he hasn't even marketed it to this point because he needs to have approval of the plan before he can do that. But he knows what we want, and that's what the plan's going to be.
So
If that makes sense to
I don't
you.
think it's in flux. I think that this is another step in the process of.
Correct. So it's not final
Right.
what's done, but it's heading in that direction, yes.
I guess the point that I was trying to make, Dave, is that if you're trying to say, hey, let's not develop the property at all, that ship has already sailed. Now, if St. Francis Group doesn't move forward with and meet their obligations, then obviously contractually, that would then end that agreement with the township. So, but as long as he meets his obligations, and he has thus far, this, to take a walk and say, let's do something different with the property is.
Well, not necessarily something different. Let's find common ground. I think that's what
Yeah, and I think that's
Joe was
something
kind of
we've been trying to
emphasizing,
do.
there
I
is
think
common
this-
ground there.
Yes.
It's just finding it.
And I think we can see some of that and find some of that with feedback from
That's exactly.
people that come to the open house as
Yeah.
well.
You'll get some.
Well, you
Well,
can, however, during the zoning process, just to remind everyone, and that conceptual plan that was approved as sort of the preliminary PUD plan during that zoning process already designates areas of the property that are able to be developed and frankly required to be developed as park, and those that are able to be developed as non-park uses. So the idea of expanding and requiring more property to remain green and park space beyond what that zoning allows, to Mike's point, that ship has sailed because the zoning preliminary PUD plan already designates the areas by which St. Francis Group has to remain as park and the areas by which they have the opportunity to develop as non-park. So the common ground of designating properties as park and non-park, that has sort of sailed because that was established during the preliminary PUD process under the zoning. So I just wanted to add that there is some designations already made there.
Why don't you come to the meeting Monday and
Oh,
give your input, and we'll start there
Okay.
and see what happens.
Sounds good. Just to follow up, Chris, you and I had kind of talked about, or I berated you about, let's go to what the township has committed to, and that is setting aside a third of
Yes.
the preserve. Let's set that aside now. Let's designate it. Let's put up signs and say, this is, I don't know, from the ponds up, and maybe a green barrier along Parkview Heights. Why not do that now?
Dave, it is.
It has been done.
That's when you see the master plan that you see,
Yeah.
you're going to see that area.
Well, I mean,
I think
so
he's
the,
saying in the field, but are you saying like put stakes somewhere?
yeah, why not? I think if we, I'm just going to,
Yeah, I don't know if we
Yeah,
want to pay for surveying,
Well, what would be the point?
yeah. It's
I
not,
don't-
it's
I
not,
think
Township owns the entire property.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
truly believe that when you come to the open house on Monday, you will be able to see exactly what you're requesting, where certain areas have already been dedicated as green, you'll see where the ponds are. You'll see all of that in the green area.
okay, I'm just going to follow up and then I'm going to go somewhere else. But there is the township could go a long way to winning over the community. That, quite frankly, this is an issue. Could go a long way towards just designating it, get rid of those no trespassing signs by order of the Springfield Township Police. There's little things without a lot of expense that this township could do and really go have a better relationship with the community it serves. So we'll talk about it Monday, I guess.
Yeah, Dave, let's look Monday at the plans, see it,
Okay.
see what they are. I mean, if it's
We
helpful.
haven't seen it either, yet.
If it's helpful, I'll walk that property with you. I used to run through it. I know it, I think, pretty well. But I mean, with what's being said here, I think a lot of these ships have sailed. But that doesn't mean that,
No, I mean, it's entirely
Yeah.
possible. I mean,
We're-
the design team, there's actually Glacier Works, Human Nature, you've met, those individuals back at the meeting. That design team, along with St. Francis Group, and Chris, myself, and Kathleen have been sitting together and essentially trying to do three things. Tom Nyer is trying to develop a plan that is practical and marketable for the uses that we've allowed. Human Nature is trying to preserve as much of that property as they can and even incorporate the feeling of the park throughout the development as well as in the areas that have been designated that we're not going to touch. And so you're trying, and it's not the easiest piece of property to do that with for a variety of different issues, and you're trying to blend all of those things to meet not only what we're trying to accomplish with the property, but also come up with a piece of property that, if developed according to the plan, would do everything you said and more, and bring people in a gathering spot together in a more robust park. The other thing that they've done in this plan, which makes it also very difficult, when you see it, you've got to remember, is they've taken the high canopy trees and left them alone. So you say, well, why does the road do this? Why are the buildings located here? Is because they wanted to preserve the high canopy trees. So there's huge growths of trees that are untouched throughout the property. Most of what's going to be removed are the sort of invasive honeysuckle and the scrub.
There's a lot.
And quite a bit of the green is that, quite frankly. The ponds are to be expanded. So the two ponds are actually on the plan, are going to be consolidated and actually expanded is more of a feature. So, and there's trails throughout the entire property. So I think, when you see this done, all of the things that you want will be there, and it'll be usable for everybody in this township and everybody outside this township, and also provide a catalyst for the township to go forward into the future. So there's a lot of ifs. Can that be achieved? Will the market be there to do and meet the high standards that we've set for that property? That remains to be seen. And so if there isn't a market at the level that we want, both on the residential and the commercial, and what I mean by that is the type of development. This is not going to be a shopping center. This is going to be a very high-end development. And if that can't be achieved because the market won't sustain it, I know this board won't move forward.
Mike, you can say that now, and I know you're sincere, but the further along we go, the lower the bar goes.
But Dave, those are in the agreement, and those have been established in the preliminary development plan. Those are forever unless some board changes it.
Well, that's just it. 4 years from now, even Joe Honorlaw could be doing
And
something
that's the
else.
case with every single thing in life. Nothing is for certain. If you're talking about a legislative process, any law that's passed today could be undone tomorrow. Any development that's approved could be undone. That's not unique in this situation.
And the last,
There are no guarantees that anything's going to stay the way it is.
the last piece, Dave, is if we would have left it the way it was and a new board came on board, they could have just built the houses that it was originally
Yeah,
zoned for.
That was-
I'm
that
just
was-
telling you,
that
that could
was-
have, that could happen, that could have happened too. It's a little harder to do that now.
We can't commit to future boards, but I can tell you that, I personally, we're not just going to develop, if it turns out, we can't get the kind of development we really think that the community needs, but we can throw just any old thing in there just to develop it. No, that's not where, we'll take a pass. We'll wait, things might change.
Joe, I trust you
So-
at your word, but,
Yeah. But you're right, I could be gone.
things like the former Kroger's in Galbraith Point, and we've had some speed bumps. Anyway, I'll just leave you all with 2 words. Charlie Harper. Let's work on that.
And that's
Thank
very
you
much,
for your time.
And that's
that's
part
very
of
much a
it's in
theme
the
we'd like to
wind.
pursue.
It's in the wind.
All right.
And
Thank you.
as you walk away, Dave, if this was, when did we buy that property? We purchased that property years ago
Long time.
to prevent it from becoming what we didn't want to see in this community. And that was, we got a good return on our investment. It's not a park, but it was an area that could have been a target for multiple housing, family apartments, and we didn't want to see that in the township. So we stepped out on faith and made that call.
Okay, Gwen, I'll just say the perception, however inaccurate, is that the township is trying to get money back to justify the 1.3 mil, and that it's about tax revenue. That's the perception.
That's not true.
That is absolutely
I'm not
absurd.
saying it is, I'm just saying that's the perception.
But a lot of it, that perception is pushed forward by people that are against this board. So that's their whole
That's their
life,
plan.
to
That's right.
say we're a bunch of, dumbasses. So
Well,
just let's go Monday, look at the boards. If you want me to walk through the park with you, Dave, I would love to. With the water nursery, growing up as a kid, I used to ice skate on that pond. My
A lot
brother-in-law
of
was at
folks
Burke.
do,
His
yeah.
father ran the frickin' place for a zillion years, so
sounds good.
Dave, I will say to you what I said to Mr. Rivers.
It's a legal term.
Beware of the messenger who's bringing the message.
You're right, a lot of rumors go out there. It happens.
Yeah.
hopefully Monday will help soothe some of those fears. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the board? There's no other business before the
Oh, go ahead.
board. I'd like to adjourn the meeting and go into executive session.
Actually need a motion.
Motion.
to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
For the purposes of discussing the employment of a public employee.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
No. Ms. McFarland?
Yes.
Mr. Howlaw?
Aye.
Mr. Burning?
Aye.
For an executive session.
Meeting adjourned.
No, this one is.